Philippines has become a tourist hotspot, especially because of the amazing natural beauty of its beaches and coasts. Some would say it has become a bucket list destination for nature lovers. So naturally, when planning an epic trip to the Philippines, most people plan to make any one of these places the first place that they'll go to. But if you ask me, there's one destination at the very top of my list, the INC Central Temple. Primarily to worship God in this temple and to witness the magnificent architecture. It's definitely a bucket list destination for any member of the Church of Christ. But before the largest house of worship of the Church of Christ was constructed, believe it or not, this was all open land. The land that the Central Temple was constructed on was relatively isolated and undeveloped at the time. It was rugged and mountainous terrain, so naturally, the land was uneven. This made the construction process more challenging. Some portions had to be excavated, while others were filled to create a level surface. The Central Temple was built on a 3.95-acre property located on Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City, Philippines. The local congregation of Templo Central was formerly known as the local congregation of Balara, which was established in 1948 during the time of the messenger and executive minister at the time, Brother Felix Y. Manalo. The first worship service was conducted in the home of Sister Maria Bautista. Over time, with the rapid growth of the local congregation of Balara, various worship venues were established. In the 1970s, the worship services were transferred to the INC Central Complex, and the structures that came to be known as Capilla 1 and Capilla 2 were established. On May 9, 1971, the local congregation known as Balara would be called the local congregation of Central. The number of brethren in the local congregation of Central rapidly grew, so the church administration decided in 1981 to construct a large and modern worship building. This is now known as the Central Temple. Before becoming one singular congregation, it was originally composed of 4 local congregations: Kuliat, Quarry, Central 1, and Central 2. These local congregations were merged into one and became the local congregation of Templo Central. So much history. It's amazing looking back at the growth that led to the construction of this extremely important place of worship. Just as with any structure that has stood the test of time, a solid foundation is needed, and what the Central Temple was constructed on is truly solid. The Central Temple was constructed on a solid rock foundation, and the site's bedrock is made of durable adobe. Adobe is resistant to pests and decay, able to withstand harsh weather conditions. This solid base was deemed ideal for the temple because of its stability and high elevation. The worship building itself has a footprint of 12,040 square feet, with its foundation elevated roughly 23 feet above the road, and it has a total height of 285 feet from the ground to the tip of its center tower. The construction of the Central Temple began in March of 1982 and took 2 years and nearly 4 months to complete. The truth is, this was a relatively short time period considering the overall size of the Central Temple. However, through God's mercy and guidance, it was completed with a beautiful and magnificent structure within the appointed time. In commemoration of the church's 70th anniversary, the Central Temple was dedicated to God on July 27, 1984, in a worship service officiated by Brother Eranio G. Manalo, the executive minister of the Church of Christ at the time. This neo-Gothic-inspired architectural edifice was designed by the renowned architect, Mr. Carlos Antonio Santos Viola.
Before I got started with the design of this recent temple, I always bear in mind to design or arrive at a sort of a type of architecture that will identify the Church of Christ, the Iglesia ni Cristo. The moment you see it, you can identify it, since it's going to be the house of worship for God. Therefore, I have to create a style that will be suited and adaptable for such kind of purpose. So you will notice why the temple, the style or the type is, the tendency is for verticality. You will notice the towers, the spires are all going up, pointing up to heaven. And that's what he considered the spirituality of this style.
And these design elements have carried over throughout the decades in the design and construction of INC houses of worship around the world. The tendency of verticality can be clearly seen in every house of worship through the spires, towers, and even exterior molding designs. The central temple, as the name implies, is the centerpiece of the INC, so it is fitting that this monumental place of worship receives regular additions and updates. Throughout the years, we've seen the introduction of groundbreaking tech and audio-video that made its way into houses of worship around the world. It's a common sight to see large screens in an INC sanctuary, but the central temple was the first to utilize a large format screen for regular use during worship services. On July 23, 2005, during the Thanksgiving worship service for the 91st anniversary of the church, the digital video wall was used for the first time in the central temple. Another important and very significant addition was the installation of a pipe organ. The extensive assembly and installation further enhanced the appearance and, most importantly, the sound quality of the organ. As an organist and choir director, Emily Watko had the chance to visit the central temple various times throughout the years.
A few times I was able to see the temple. Instances when we were called, to attend conference. So we were there to learn things as choir directors in taking care of the choir members. And usually it is in the vicinity in the temple. But we go inside and it's amazing, In one of our conferences, they decided that all choir directors will sing in one worship service. We were so happy, to be included, because I believe at the time there were 400 of us, choir directors. It is a very, very different experience, because singing with that many voices, it's really very uplifting. It's very, very spiritual, to sing in the temple, that you are giving glory and worshiping God.
TJ joined the Church of Christ in 2019 and was blessed with the once-in-a-lifetime chance to be baptized in the Philippines.
It was before we were baptized. We went to a service in Central. That was an experience. Just the size of it alone was amazing. It was very humbling. First time I've ever been in a place that felt that way. Seeing all the rows and all the brethren that were attending. I've been to a few government buildings that were pretty big and pretty significant here in the States, but nothing compared to going to the Central Chapel. It was definitely a very unique experience, one of the most memorable experiences. I travel a lot for work, even as far as Turkey. More specifically as in Istanbul. I've visited these other historical sites. I've also been to the castles in Afghanistan that were built by Alexander the Great, essentially. So very significant places. The difference of going to the Central Chapel and the feeling there, it had much more of a reverence.
And like many travelers, Kungdon had a bucket list destination that he and his wife looked forward to visiting.
My first experience in attending at the Central Temple was actually back in 2006. My wife and I were actually on our honeymoon, so we were able to attend there. And my first impression, seeing it in person, is just pictures does not do it justice. Right? Seeing it in person, you completely in awe. It just hits different. It's important to still go there, only because obviously it's a bucket list thing to do, right? You can see it through magazines, you see it through social media. Obviously, there are many different social platforms that the church has through incmedia.org, iglesiacristo.net. But to be there in person, it's inspiring. If you really want a true sense of elevating your faith, I think that's really the place to go, because you can completely feel that when you worship at the Central Temple.
You know, the house of worship inside the church is so important. Although you can pray to God wherever you are, but we call this a house of God. So when you come in, even though it's not time of worship service, you sit or you kneel and you talk to God, you can feel Him. We are so happy, that we have one temple in the church that we can say is our temple.
It's been such a privilege to learn about the INC Central Temple. There's no doubt that this centerpiece of the INC will continue to be a beacon of hope and pride for members of the Church of Christ all around the world. The next time you plan a trip to the Philippines, I hope you find your way to Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City, Philippines, to see this magnificent display of engineering and architecture. But more importantly, I hope you experience how powerfully spiritual attending a worship service is in the Central Temple of the Iglesia Cristo Church of Christ. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Blueprint, where in the end, everything is part of God's plan.